Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew. Today, really excited to introduce to you all Derrall Stalvey, Senior Vice President of Strategy for Chattanooga FC. He's got a men's team competing in MLS Next Pro, women's team in WPSL, as well as a youth academy competing in MLS Next. For the last 4 years, Derrall has been leading the club's long-term vision, strategic initiatives, and brand growth. And this is a club that's been around for 16 years and has done some pretty exceptional things in that time, especially when you consider the level, the size, and scale that the club has been competing at. And we're really excited to chat more about that and give a blueprint and a great conversation for what clubs around the United States can do to emulate the success that CFC has had. But first, Derrall, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrew. It's really good to be part of this. Love talking about this club, talking about this sport. So couldn't be happier to do this. So thanks for having me.
This is going to touch a lot of things I'm really passionate about, so I'm very excited. But the first one, to get to know you personally a little bit, to start out with, what's your first memory of soccer?
First memory of soccer, I grew up in the South, so soccer was not the first choice of sports in this part of the country. American football, baseball, and basketball are the sports most kids play. But I remember when I was around 9 or 10, there was a kid that moved into my neighborhood from Pittsburgh, which in my world at that time seemed very, very far away and super exotic as a kid. But I remember he had a soccer ball, and where we were all throwing American football as kids in the neighborhood, this kid would show up to the neighborhood or to somebody's backyard with a soccer ball, and I just remember him, literally showing us all how to dribble, showing us what a header was, and at that point it just kind of seemed like a novelty sport, or this sport that really wasn't part of my community. But what I do remember, just it was just something neat to play as a kid. We didn't even have goals at my school, but this kid Pete would bring his soccer ball to the playground, and we would just kick it around. I just remember being impressed with how I guess how easy it was, just not easy to play, of course, but how easy it was to kind of activate that game. It literally was a kid with a ball, and you just go for it. So and then never played growing up, actually. Really started following the sport much closer in 1999, that famous Women's World Cup, which was
Absolutely.
here in the U.S. But I remember being in college for that final match. Had a whole bunch of people over at my apartment. I forget what we were doing, but we were about to go somewhere. We were all gathering there to go out. Had the match on in the background. Of course, everybody knows how it ended, but no one wanted to leave. So whatever we were doing that night or that day, just waited. From there, just it's the love of the game just kind of grown for different reasons.
The one you mentioned with the 1999 World Cup and the final of the U.S. women beating China, and the Brandy Chastain moment, and that's a big one for me. That was the first soccer tournament I watched consistently myself. I was 9 at the time. But the interesting piece, what I'm hearing from you there, is it was just kind of happenstance that you guys had the game on. You didn't necessarily, it was we were really passionate about women's soccer and really wanted to watch this game. It was just it was there. And for some reason, the drama and the spectacle of it, and it just kind of hooked you guys. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, because most of the people we talked to, had more of that interest and have those experiences. So it's really amazing to see, the same event was really impactful for both of us, just in different ways.
Yeah, that's so true. I doubt we even had plans to watch. Honestly, it probably was just on by chance. No one would have left. Everybody was willing to stay. So it was very cool.
Yeah, awesome. So from that point, in college, watching the 99 World Cup, I know that you didn't initially get into soccer business, right? In clubs, you were working more in media and TV news, broadcasting. So tell us a little bit about your professional journey to that point, and then how did this transition to being part of the leadership at CFC happen?
Yeah, I've been kind of like a journalism junkie, journalism nerd, even as a elementary, middle school kid. Used to try to steal the newspaper before my dad could read it in the morning. That's how much I loved the news, even back then. So always had an interest in it, and that of course propelled me into choosing that as a career in college, and went to school at the University of Tennessee to pursue a degree in broadcasting. And through that, I just kind of got into the news business as a producer. So a producer is somebody that, at least in the intro level, you're assigned a particular newscast. So I was in charge of choosing what's in that newscast, writing what's in that newscast, kind of developing what it was going to look like to the audience. So I produced in the Knoxville market, various shows, kind of rose through the ranks within that news department at the ABC affiliate, and was the assistant news director in that newsroom, which is essentially the number two. But I knew I needed to kind of, you know, branch out and do something outside of that market. 'Cause that literally was the same market I started my internship with. So I go from intern all the way up to the number two in the department. Got recruited to come to Chattanooga, which is only about an hour and a half from Knoxville. Came to Chattanooga in 2007 to be the news director, which is the head of the department for the NBC affiliate. And so that's what brought me to this market. Had no plans at all of ever doing anything other than news. Like I said, it's what I had wanted to do in some form as a kid, So I landed my dream job before age 30, and did that for about 10 years and was then like, now what? It's not that I couldn't have achieved other things within that, but I kind of accelerated really, really fast. I was lucky to do that and had a lot of lucky breaks go my way to make all that happen. But then I kind of get to the end of that season of my life and was like, now what? I was a fan first of this club, and
Okay.
those connections as being a fan and then having a kid in the academy, started helping the academy on a volunteer basis, because I had some background in media. So, they could find that useful in certain ways.
Of course.
Then, it just kind of, it grows from there. But it was my whole career plan, my whole life plan was going to be in news and in media. And this club does something funny to you. It changes your plan.
And one reason I'm excited to chat with you, not only for the Chattanooga FC story, but specifically because of your background, because through this podcast, I feel like I'm always trying to answer this question of why does this game, really a silly, simple thing as you experienced as a kid, why does it have such a hold on us, right? What's the point? Why is it relevant? And I think in terms of this podcast, that question then leads us to, okay, it is relevant in some way. However we answer that, it means something to us and means something to people all over the world. How do we create moments, experiences, and relationships and networks to just kind of enhance that? And I think clubs like what you guys are doing at that level of American soccer and what you're doing in your communities, and then the strategy, the marketing, the media side, the communications, the telling the story is really the business application of that, right? So
Sure.
really excited to be able to chat with you on that point. From your background in news and craft and looking for stories, crafting them, what do you think has served you the most with this transition to like a leadership role in strategy within a soccer club?
Wow, that's a really good one. I think to some degree, having to try to anticipate and learn what an audience needs by producing, writing a newscast every single day earlier in my career, and then leading a group of people who are writing newscasts, but still kind of doing a lot of the same function. Develop the skill set to try to learn and, with some level of instinct, kind of anticipate what an audience wants out of the product. And in the news context, that is just knowing what kind of stories people watch. You're measured every single night on your newscast. If you led with a certain story, you're going to get certain level of ratings versus a different kind of story. So a lot of that's just trial and error and just doing it every single day. I'm certain a lot of that translated into my initial role with the club, which was kind of helping them tell that story. And I felt like I had a little bit of understanding of our market in particular. I knew some of the values of not just the CFC fans or soccer fans in general, but just the community. When I joined this club, it already had a super, super strong brand. So
Right.
I really just didn't want to mess it up, and wanted to kind of enhance. It was strong just by them. And by them, I mean the founders and those early people leading it. They were just doing what they felt was right, but they didn't really have the resources to do market analysis or understand what type of messaging will work for this particular community. They just did what felt right, and they absolutely nailed it. So my job was to just try to take it to the next level and not mess up what they had built.
Yeah, no, definitely. You speak of the foundation, like of the club's been around since 2009, right? And so you've been part of it this last 4 years, especially as they've made the jump to MLS Next Pro, and with that, I think maybe comes a little bit different type of flavor of that, what that brand is, maybe what that story is. But in addition
Yeah.
to creating the WPSL and the academy as well,
Mhm.
in terms of like the story of the club, right? You said there was already that strong brand. Could you, to the uninitiated here, to the people who aren't really as familiar, could you give us a little bit of idea of like what would you say is the core story of Chattanooga FC?
I think the core story for us is simple, is that everything we do is about making our community better and making relationships stronger in our community. That is perhaps a little bit risky because how do you grow the fan base outside of this community? But I still feel like that's what's gotten us here this far. And so just kind of sticking to our original mission statement has been kind of the key to success, is because we've been in, I guess, three leagues now in our journey as a club. One, the amateur league, and then a professional league, and now MLS Next Pro, which is truly professional. But throughout all of that, our story would be, we joke a lot that Chattanooga people really love Chattanooga. A lot of people are proud of their hometown. I get that.
Sure.
But they everything that we do really is through the lens of, is this decision making our community better? Is this decision helping us build relationships? And the revenue and the ticket sales, we fully believe will take care of themselves if we stick to that mission, because it's proven that it has.
And I think you speak to the mission statement. I want to actually read it because I hadn't seen it before, but it was in your email signature, so I saw it and I was like, "Hey, this makes sense." So the CFC
Mhm.
mission, this is direct quote, everybody, to use soccer as a tool to build strong relationships across age, race, creed, and socioeconomic status for the greater good of our city. That I think if we compare that to a lot of professional clubs around the world, around certainly around America, I don't know, how many kind of have that specific community focus. But the other interesting piece is, yes, you guys want to do that, but at the end of the day, you have an organization of talented people that you've got to be able to pay. You've got
Mhm.
expenses that you incur from training fields, renting the stadiums, all of that. So it has to still make sense business wise. You guys have to keep things going. What do some of those discussions look like at that higher level of, hey, we've got an idea for a project or a move, and how do you kind of try to like balance, might be the word, maybe it's not necessarily balance, the community led piece that's a value in the mission of the club with, all right, we still have to keep the lights on.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's a fair question, and it is one, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, as the expense line has gone up quite a bit just by where we are. We've grown from maybe 4 or 5 full time people to more than 30 in the front
Wow.
office in just a
Wow.
couple of years, in just 2 years, really. So you can imagine what that does to a budget. So the pressures to match that as close as you can to revenue is definitely increased. But the way we use that mission in kind of the business sense is, take our stadium for example. We don't own our own venue. We lease it from them. We are the primary tenant, but we're not the only tenant. So when I go into a conversation with our stadium director, we have to always be thinking. We believe we should always be thinking about, how can this conversation not only benefit CFC, or how can this contract negotiation not only benefit our club, but like, is it really helping the community? What are our decisions within this new agreement going to impact? How will they impact the other tenants?
Mhm.
And being a little less selfish, which is a little bit what businesses need to do, quite frankly, a lot of times.
Yeah,
But we
sure.
try to take a different approach of, yes, at the end of the day, we absolutely have to take care of ourselves first. Not gonna sugarcoat that, but we're constantly thinking about, how are we being good stewards of this, of people's time, of people's money, of people's investment in building relationships with us. So those conversations, even something, in the weeds as a contract negotiation, it's still seen through the lens of, are we really doing right for Chattanooga with this agreement? Um, or, if we are, all the way down to which players we sign.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. The technical staff is going to choose players that they feel like can help us win. But there are a lot of players who can help you win that don't match your culture. And those just are not going to be selected, because that culture piece, that using the sport that we all love to make something else better and to do it for something bigger is it's just the fabric of everything we do. It's hard to really articulate it other than just to say it's on our email signature, it's on our walls in our front office, it's in the locker room, it goes through everything that we do. And there have been conversations in the last couple of years of, okay, do we amend this mission statement? It's been there
Hmm.
since 2009. We started
So
as a
from the beginning, right? Like
yeah,
from the
yeah,
so
day
when
one.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's not one single letter has been changed. No, not a single word has been changed since then. And we're like, okay, do we add something in there that focuses on winning or excellence or driving revenue? And we just haven't, because we
Hmm.
feel like those things are built into the original statement naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think seeing what you guys are doing and for example, just from what I've heard in my own research and knowledge, the club has done some pretty exceptional things. Back all the way 2015, you guys had 18,000 people in attendance, right, for a game.
Yep.
At the time, you're fourth tier. It's a fourth tier record for a game against New York Cosmos' second team, right?
Yep.
In a
Yep.
crowdfunding drive, you guys raised over $800,000 for that of
Yep.
an ownership drive. Just this year, massive turnout for the local Chattanooga Derby in the Open Cup. You had 12,000. You've had 12,000
hmm
fans for Atlanta United, and this is all operating within that third and fourth tier of U.S. soccer, which
hmm
it's incredible, right? Like
Yep.
that's a huge draw, especially when you compare it to your local population, and it shows that like when clubs do things right, there is an appetite for this type of soccer here. What do you think are some of those, whether it's specific tactical decisions or again, I'm sure a lot comes back to that mission and the values. How have you
hmm
guys been able to achieve some of those things?
It definitely is a still kind of a grassroots underdog mentality that we have even to this day. So going all the way back to the beginning before I was involved, but of course
Mhm.
I now know these stories as the legends they are. Um, we had founders that were running our social media accounts at the time that would direct message people, individually. I mean, you don't get more grassroots than just one-on-one from a founder saying, "Come to the match
Sure.
tonight."
Mhm.
And so I remember looking at the old DMs when I joined the club and had access to the social media accounts, and I'm looking for something deep in the DMs, and I go all the way to the bottom, and I'm like, they were literally using Twitter DMs to invite individuals. Now it was a copy paste
Mhm.
with a little bit of modification, so it's not like they were writing individuals, but that's how granular
Mhm.
they put in the work. And then how does that still work to this day?
Sure.
You can't just. We don't think you can just throw a bunch of money at advertising and expect people to come. At least not for what we're doing. We don't know that, well, one, you don't have an unlimited budget, so you're kind of forced to get creative. However, just that running this club almost like a campaign, where even to this day we're in the business of kind of winning people's hearts and minds and
Mhm.
having
Mhm.
them have an emotional connection to our club. That kind of goes back to my background in news. I knew that people choose which channel they watch. I just knew this from audience research we did years and years for years. I knew that people select their favorite channel for feeling and for emotion. It wasn't who, in news we think it's they're choosing who's first on the scene or who has the more reporters or who can get the facts right. All those things are important, but what really drove people to choose their favorite channel was my grandma watched this channel, or my parents watch this channel, or I just like those people, or they seem nice, or they feel like I could
Mhm.
speak to them in the grocery store. And so I knew this community in particular, and probably a lot of communities, but I just knew that about this one, is that if we could keep that emotional connection, in an authentic way. It doesn't mean it's fake, but that emotional connection to this club is huge, because you're not going to win every single season. You're not going to have a great season. So we ask ourselves a lot, what's going to keep them coming to the match if we are losing more than we're winning? Now, that doesn't happen, unfortunately, a
Of
lot, but
course.
if it does, like, you can't just be a winning team, not in the level of soccer that we are.
To your point, the emotion, the relationships. I think a great example in soccer, I was fortunate to visit Spain last year and go to a Real Betis match in Seville, and their slogan is "Manque pierdo," which basically means like whether we lose or not, like we're there, we're going to be there, right? It
Yeah.
speaks to this, like it's beyond results, which nobody wants to go watch a team that's going to get smacked every week. You want a team
Yeah.
that's going to go out there and fight for the badge and fight for the people, and still there needs to be that element. Again, we're going to come to the business side of that, like product that you guys are offering, but really it's what makes people stick around is those connections, the moments of relationships, which is
Yeah.
is really refreshing, to hear from you. And again, that comes from your decades of experience in really zeroing in on what makes people pay attention. But
Mhm.
in terms of that, when you talk about some of that marketing communications, how would you define like good, effective marketing for you guys? What do you value? What do you focus on? Whether that's social, email, in-person
Mhm.
events, and especially as kind of a blueprint that other clubs around the country might be able to use as a perspective or a prism to view their own operations through.
I think segmenting our marketing is really helpful. So, targeting certain demographics or certain groups, with messages that are tailored that would be interesting to them. So the easy thing to do is to have one marketing message that everyone receives, but we spend a lot of time to make sure that the photographs that we use in that marketing message are going to appeal to that segmented audience. For example, we know from our own survey data, we're able to know if someone comes with a friend to our game, this is the average level of experience score they're going to have at the match. If someone comes with their spouse or their partner, if someone comes alone, or someone comes with a business colleague, so we understand, with some data, what is driving some of those decisions and what's driving their fan experience at our match. So that means when we go to market them, whether it be digital ads, email marketing,
Mhm.
or other segmenting, um, we're very strategic and specific on what type of message they receive, because otherwise you're just casting this wide fishing net and just hoping you catch a few. But we'd rather make sure the bait matches what we're trying to catch, and so that's one thing that has been incredibly successful for us, even though it does take a lot more work to do it that way.
Absolutely.
Um, being super involved in, the community, not just sports community, but just the business community. Having a very robust academy, was very helpful. Going all the way back to the beginning, early on, the academy kids would just come to the matches for free. So of
Okay.
course, mom and dad or whoever the guardian is, what are they going to do? They're going to buy a ticket. So you've got the kids coming in their academy jerseys. Sponsors love that because sponsors on the front, that kid's running around the stadium. 400 kids are running around the stadium with that sponsor on.
Mhm.
So it's just this, everything's so connected, the web of everything that we do. Um, yeah, like it, and trying to just break down those silos on our strategy, and make sure that, partnership isn't doing one thing without marketing understanding how that affects them, and vice versa. So just being super, super intentional about keeping all these pieces connected. There's no shortcut. I mean, you just have to do the work, and that's what I think is so cool about CFC is we didn't just start doing the work, like that foundation. I mean, you had the wives of the founders in 2009, and a few years after that, not just the wives. I should rephrase that: the wives and the founders cleaning up the stadium at the end of the match. So you've got girlfriends, wives. I mean, they couldn't afford to hire a cleaning crew back then.
Mhm.
So that
Wow.
that kind of feeling of everyone just kind of pitches in and gets it done is still here today, now that we have 5, 6 times the employees.
Yeah, you guys have had that culture established, right? That just is like a
Mhm.
very, you know, uh, honest like a humility. And you used the word
Yeah,
earlier, which is a word I always love to hear, especially in these types of stories, is like to steward the club, right? Of really
yeah.
understanding, respecting like the way that you guys are impacting people's lives through soccer. It's
Mhm.
interesting you talk about the segmentation piece. Could you give an example, whether it's the kids in the academy, a couple versus somebody coming with a friend? What might be a different type of story or theme that connects with each of those groups? And then is there also like a match day experience, an in stadium element that kind of corresponds with each as well?
Right. So if you have a buy one get one free offer, um, while everyone would appreciate that, we specifically want to make sure that we send that to people that we know within our database who are more likely to come with a date, whether
Okay.
that be a spouse or we want to make sure that they are targeted with that message. If we are sending it to people that we know have come to our games in the past with a group of friends, the picture you're going to see on the graphic for the next match is probably not going to be a player. It's going to be a group of friends holding a beer in the stands, because now we're not selling the match on the field. We're selling, this is a good thing to do, or this is a fun thing to do on a Saturday night. This is an affordable piece of entertainment. And it's just like we all see commercials and we see ads in our own feed, and we're going to naturally be interested in things that kind of look like our life. And whether that be the imagery that we choose, the video that we choose, we just would show a different ad. So that's one example. On the academy side, we have one player on the men's team that came through our academy system. Actually, he was a
Okay.
player last year that came through our academy system.
Mhm.
So with that, you use this player as a way to remind the academy that we have a match coming up. On the women's side, we have 5 or 6 people that came through the academy system on the women's side. So you're going to use their photography and their stories as a way to kind of help those academy families be more interested in coming to the match, because now they're not just coming to watch CFC, they're coming to watch somebody that they can really look up to because they have just come through that same pathway.
Exactly. Somebody they can emulate. It's almost like that story there is almost like the dream, right? Of
Yep,
you, this could be you taking the next step. And everybody loves the hometown hero, right? Like everybody
of
loves that.
course.
Especially like you said, Chattanooga loves Chattanooga, right?
Oh,
Chattoogans
yeah,
love Chattanooga.
yeah.
I've got friends who are going, just seeing like the imprint on the town that the club has is really, really special to see. Recently, there was an announcement that I believe the academy, the MLS Next program, I think is it the U14s, is going to be completely free. That's fees for coaching. That's travel. First, do
Yeah.
I have that? Do I have that
It's
right? And
it's three
what's the
three
plan?
age groups. I'm gonna make sure. I think it's you 13, 14, and 15. Yeah. So 3 age groups on the boys side.
Okay, amazing. So again, we talked about doing good, being good business, right? And coming out.
Mhm.
What's the play there, and what are kind of some of those discussions and thoughts you guys have? Like, what's the upside there from the business? Because it's pretty straightforward. Okay, we need at least to have fees and revenue coming in to make this happen, especially when you talk about travel, because you're talking about regional and potentially national travel. So what
Yeah.
was that discussion like for you guys, and what do you see as the upside, the payoff for that investment?
Without being connected to an MLS team, I mean, we're an independent team in MLS Next Pro, so we are not going to have the same MLS Academy feeding into our first team. So MLS Academy is feeding into MLS Next to MLS Next Pro, all the way up to the first team of MLS. Of course, is the goal for many of those guys. But we don't have that, so we have to make our academy much stronger. I mean, we have a strong academy and always have, but they're strong on kind of a state and regional level. But we're not consistently developing. In the past, we haven't consistently been developing players that really could truly go a pro pathway. Our ownership felt very strongly about tearing down the pay to play model. As I mean, in a perfect world, it would be, you'd take it away from everything, but someone's going to pay for that somewhere. But we wanted to start with these 3 age groups in MLS Next, and we're at a potential disadvantage because we've got the MLS club in Nashville, 2 hours to our west, We have Atlanta United 2 hours to our south. So if you're a player at that level, you have two really good options to go play for free. So we will never get those kids to stay here charging them $10,000 a year. We will never recruit players from Nashville. We will never recruit players from Atlanta at that level. So, we needed our ownership felt like we needed to fund this if we're going to truly develop potential and future pros in our pipeline. So that's the next step of. I know it sounds weird to be talking about a 13-year-old as being developed for a future pro, but that's the reality of what you're trying to do in this business. So yes, it's a good thing to do for the community, but there is 100% a business reason to do it as well. Is provide opportunity, but also we're counting on the fact that we're going to start developing players that will go all the way up to our first team, and that takes money. You that takes we've had to revamp the staff for those three age groups and bring in very high level coaches that are going to be able to recruit and bring players in at that level a little bit a step way beyond what we were doing. So that was really the move there. One is it's the right thing to do. We all would love for soccer to be free,
Sure.
but we have to start somewhere. So we started with those three age groups on the boys side, and just creating that pro pathway. I mean, we have players from 2-3 hours away that are going to be either relocating to Chattanooga with their families or just making that sacrifice to drive to training. And though that level of player would have never had a reason to leave,
Mhm.
their current academy to come do that.
Yeah, well, you make the point with the MLS competition with Nashville and Atlanta. You guys have a USL League One side in Chattanooga too, so there's that element. It's like, but I think the
Mhm.
interesting thing I'm getting from that is where we're at in American soccer right now is the opportunity that is created from competition. So from the competitive nature of teams competing for talent, and the key here being that, like you said, this is an investment. You guys
Mhm.
stand to get value from hopefully selling this player or getting a percentage of rights further on.
Mhm.
It's amazing to see those developments in American soccer that then are opening up access that then is making the game more inclusive. And against my hope that
Mhm.
that would just kind of continue. We'll be able to see that in more markets around the country, right? And it's not just
Mhm.
the MLS clubs, but like you guys in MLS Next Pro, you have that pathway now and that opportunity. So I just see it as a positive. If we
Yeah.
pivot a little bit to the women's club, the WPSL that CFC has
Mhm.
been operating, what are some considerations? What are some things that excite you guys about the WPSL side? Because that's something I've had this conversation with so many people. Really, again, I just talked about on the men's side the opportunity and potential, but I don't think we've even scratched the surface in what it looks like at a semi-pro and professional level for women's soccer in the United States.
Right. I mean, we just feel like there's so much growth already happening, and what's going to continue to happen in women's sports in general. So there's a business reason to do it. Is aside from all the other wonderful reasons to support women in sports, but there's a business reason to do it as well, because the trajectory of that league, of the sport in general, is has a really positive outlook. So while that's not the reason we started it to begin with, it certainly is not lost on us that we definitely understand the growth that is going to happen there and is already happening. And with the World Cup coming to North America, everyone is expecting that windfall, and hopefully it comes true. But the more work we can do leading up to that, so that then when young girls or young boys who never even thought about the sport, now they're watching the World Cup and they're like, I want to try this sport. We just want to be set in a good position you know, to welcome the women's side as well as the men's side. And we've already established ourselves very well on the men's side, but there's still some work to do on the women's side. That's it's good work that's happening right now. Like our women's team this year is almost a complete overhaul from the last couple of years, and that
Okay.
is the coaches that we brought in are recruiting on a national level, Power Five conference players, former pros, and so it is a really, really good product. We have a survey question in our fan survey that is specific to the women's game, and it asks our fans to kind of help us understand how the performance on the field matched their expectations. Were the athletes better than they expected? Much better? Same? That type of question.
Interesting.
And because we wanted to understand, we knew that it was a good product, but we wanted to understand, does the fan understand how special it is to get this level of player in the women's game in a market
Mhm.
our size? And we've been really, really pleased with the results of how satisfied the fans are, and the fact that they realize that it's much different this year than what they might have been used to in watching a CFC women's game.
Huge, huge. And again,
Yeah,
what we've been talking about is, you guys are trying to make decisions on a leadership level within the club. But if it doesn't resonate with the community, if the community is not valuing it, then, as much as you guys think, and obviously you have your opinions, but
yeah,
that's not gonna lead to anything long term. So that's an
right.
interesting survey piece. When
Yeah, because
is that like
data.
an annual thing you guys are able to do as well, the survey in general
Yeah,
also?
we'll do an annual survey, that's primarily targeted to season ticket holders, just kind of understanding what their needs
Okay.
are. But on a game-to-game basis, we do a survey for every single match, no matter how big it is. Some of the questions are the same. Most of the questions are the same for each match so that we can track. But then there's a few unique questions depending on what was happening at that particular match. But data drives all of our decisions, not only on the technical side, but it's a very data-driven technical staff. But that entire, I guess, kind of mindset translates over to the business side as well. We don't like to make decisions in a vacuum, or without the data. There's some instinct there that I think many of us have, but the data
Mhm.
absolutely drives the ultimate decision.
Yeah. And with the WPSL club, obviously you guys made an investment on the pitch. If we come
Mhm.
back to story, to messaging, is there a difference? You talk about your segments. Like, what would be the difference in how you guys are marketing, telling the story of the WSL team versus, the MLS Next Pro team?
Yeah, it is a much different challenge because of how short their season is. So
Mm,
when I talk about the emotional connection and making people care about these athletes that they come watch, um, we have a very short period of time to sort of to introduce these athletes to the fans and create fan favorites. I mean, the season is 8 games, 4 home, 4 away. You really have 4 chances to build that. And so
mhm,
all around those 4 home games, we have to do a lot of storytelling about the players, whether that just be the player announcement, the bio when they first get introduced, but then we do a huge media day with the players, so it's a chance for them to be interviewed by our internal comm staff, which then uses that material for storytelling. So I'd say the biggest difference between the men's team and the women's team is just how accelerated that women's season is, and the sense of urgency we have to make these women as close to a household name as we can get in a really, really short period of time.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that's very unique when you talk about WPSL, and on the men's side, it'd be like a USL too, right? It's this, or NPSL, like you get,
Mhm.
yeah, a maybe 2-month season, and then even just player commitments and things, you only get a little bit of time to run up to. And
Yep.
it's interesting you make that point of like the individual stories, because I think
Mhm.
in general, what we're seeing in sports and across all sports is, there obviously is the importance of the club and that identity, because it's something that as a community we can connect with. But then
Mhm.
when it really comes to, like, breaking that next level and getting attention, all the biggest sports social media accounts of the world are individual players, right? Like your Messis,
Exactly. Yeah.
Ronaldos, Neymars, LeBron, they're miles above the Lakers, Inter Miami, like Real
Mhm.
Madrid, whoever it might be. So it's interesting you bring up that individual
Yeah,
part.
we have one of our women's players on the WPSL team. She came through our academy. She went to a local high school here. Was super high level player. Moved on to University of Arkansas and is doing well there in an SEC program. She's now spending her first year with our WPSL team, and we knew that A, she's a special player. B, she's a hometown product that we can introduce the fans to very
Mhm.
quickly, so that they have someone to cheer for, or a new person to cheer for. And everything worked as planned. And at the end of the first or second home match, there's a line of little girls waiting on this player, waiting on Kennedy to come off the field. And when I say they waited, it's not because Kennedy was ignoring them. She literally wasn't expecting anybody's waiting on her autograph. So she's
Yeah.
doing her cool down and, talking to coaches and all of that. And then finally comes over, maybe 30 minutes after the match ended. These kids are still waiting there. Alex Morgan could have walked in our stadium right then and they would not have cared. They wanted to
Yeah.
see her. And so that was just really revealing to us at how important these players can become in our community very, very quickly if we do our jobs of introducing them to them.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's both, right? There's a
Mhm.
story that's already there, but it's how you guys are able to shape it and highlight that is that
Yep.
really, really that's what then converts to the meaning and the relevance of the club to people, and then that's when it gonna keep the program going long term. No, this
Mhm.
is amazing. I have like for each topic, I have a few branching off questions for each, but I know that I'd really love to get to our final segments here, like we do with all of our guests, Derrell. So the first one is this could be, from a personal thing. This could be for as a fan. This could be as within CFC. You can really take it however you like. But we want to
Mhm.
know your all-time five-a-side team. So you get to pick four players. Formation, all of that is up to you. You've got to play somewhere as well. So you got to get yourself on the field. Tell us where that would be, and then who's your four that you're gonna, go to take on anybody, take on all comers with.
Okay. Let's start in the back. Not necessarily a true goalkeeper, but let's put Roy Keane back there.
Okay, little sweeper
Tackling,
keeper.
clean,
Yeah.
yeah, he can clean things up in the back. I'm gonna do a co-ed team. Um, I'm gonna do Mia Hamm, as I think arguably the best women's team player. Let's do Abby Wambach. She has
Okay.
I mean, she can impact a match from anywhere on the pitch, no matter what time she gets on. And then let's go a little local. Juan Hernandez is a CFC player. So he is a legend within our club. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go off camera here and grab. The club's only done one bobblehead before, and it was
Okay.
with Juan.
Oh,
So
proud.
we're going to go. This is Juan Hernandez. So we're going to put Juan in the midfield.
Love it.
Um, and So got to get the CFC representation there. And I guess for me, did not play, so I'm not going to really help the team that much. But what I could maybe do is a lot of tactical fouls because I'm going to be losing a lot of challenges, a lot of one v ones. But so I can bring some leadership and some technical fouls when we need it.
Has its place. It has its
It has its
place in the
place.
game,
That's
especially
true.
five side. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, really great eclectic squad there you pulled together. Very nice. I think we might have had Keno on a team before and maybe
Okay.
Mia, but definitely Abby Wambach is a first, and certainly CFC legend Juan Hernandez, the bobblehead
Yeah.
man himself, first time for a Because Football all-time squad. So love that. Brilliant. But Darrell, this has been amazing. We've really been around this topic, around relevance, the meaning, what it means to people and those relationships, those key moments. But as our final question, is the way we wrap up all of our episodes, could you complete the sentence "because football"?
Um, so I guess maybe I'll I'll do a kind of a double-ended sentence here. I mean, because football, I think Chattanooga found its voice, grew closer as a community. Um, Sport wasn't here in this level before we started this club. So because football, Chattanooga found its voice. And personally for me, I found lifelong friends, ended up being a second career that I wasn't planning on. And just, I guess something that's really become a calling, more than anything. So I think our community has benefited because of this sport immensely. I personally have benefited and kind of grown. Probably 75% or more of my adult friendships are somehow connected to this sport. So, you kind of wonder what's your life like without it. It's hard to imagine it at this point.
Exactly, exactly. What's life like without it? That is a tough question. But again, like we've been talking about, that's a question that clubs need to be reflecting on too, especially like how you guys are operating, the level you're at, that third tier. And there's hundreds, thankfully, there are hundreds of clubs at that level and lower, right, that are operating around the US. The fact
Mhm.
that you guys have made it 16 years is very impressive. I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say that you're definitely in the top percentile of clubs who have made it, because even 15, 16 years, it's a long time in American soccer, but certainly that relevance to the city and to the people there as well. And you guys, like you said, being that voice, it's awesome. And hopefully what you guys are doing is a great blueprint and a great playbook that other clubs can emulate to be able to sustain it and grow themselves too. So Darrell, thank you so
Mhm.
much. If we want to connect with you directly or follow the club, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, somewhat active there. On Twitter, it's just my first name, Derrall. The club's handle is Chattanooga FC on all platforms, and so have an amazing comms team and content team that keeps all those things really, really, really running. So definitely encourage people, if you're not already following the club, check that out. I think you'll learn even more than you learned here in this pod. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put those links in the description. So whether you're watching us, which we hope you did, and you got to see the Juan Hernandez bobblehead in that case, or you're listening wherever it is, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for being here, for listening, for giving us your time. Hopefully, this has given you some ideas about how to improve what you're doing, whether you are involved with a club, whether you're in some other area of soccer, big picture, just kind of another team to root for that's kind of leading the way in what the game can do for people in the United States, which we love to see and chat about. So thank you all for being here. See you on the next episode. Peace.